This video is going to be a little different. You can tell from the thumbnail. It's probably going to be a 10 out of 10. All my YouTube people know what I'm talking about. Probably won't get a bunch of views, but the diehard real ones will be here, and I appreciate you. Shout out to my guy, The Dern, because without him, I don't even know if I know this, because that's how much of a distant memory this was. But this channel is, I sit at a desk, I got a mic, I got a studio, right? But I'm a fan. That's why I do this. I'm so much of a fan that sometimes my emotion get the best of me, and I get a little selfish. When the Lions lost on Thanksgiving, I couldn't hear what anybody else had to say. I did ask if the phone lines wanted to be open. I didn't get any reaction. Maybe people weren't in a talking mood, but I wanted to be selfish. But I realized that, Derek, you're doing this for not only you, but the people as well. You can't be for the people and then you don't want the people to talk. I was just, my emotions can't get the best of me. You guys have seen it. Won't be the last time it happened. But at the end of the day, I am a fan. That is, 100%. There's nothing else that pushes this. Okay. I make a little change doing these videos, but the fan perspective is why I do it, because nobody else talks about the Detroit Lions like we do. And before as YouTubers came around, nobody, the mainstream media didn't talk about us. We got a guy in Detroit that's a Giants fan, and his sidekick is a San Francisco 49ers fan. We need actual Detroit representation. So what is this video about? Well, check this out. We're going to have a little conversation about this here. Exactly 3 years ago today, November 28th, 2020, the Detroit Lions announced today that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia have been relieved of their duties, a.k.a. fired. Now, let me take you down a little road for Matt Patricia. Now, again, I'm at a different point that I was. We are on year 2.5 of Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, and I think it's the best we've ever seen. I really do. I have my criticism of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, all right? They're not perfect, and I'm going to criticize when I see something wrong. I'm not going to play patsy. That's not what I'm going to do. And some of you like it, some of you don't. Most of you don't. You just don't want to hear anything negative. But Matt Patricia was hired in January of 2018. We fired Matt Patricia. And I'll never forget I was calling Brad Holmes Bob Quinn 3 years ago. Bob Quinn, when he got up and he fired Jim Caldwell, he said 9-7 wasn't good enough and we can't beat the good teams. He brought in Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia's record as Detroit Lions head coach was 14-30-1. His first season, he went 6-11. His second season, he went 3-12-1. Matthew Stafford was hurt that year, got put on IR. And the year he got fired, he went 4-7, and then he got fired. When Dan Campbell, actually, ironically, this week, Dan Campbell has officially surpassed Matt Patricia in tenure as Lions head coach. Now, if you look at the games, then he's played more games because he's had more games because we've had the addition of 2 more games, the 17-game season. Matt Patricia almost ruined my entire love for this franchise. When we lost on Thanksgiving and Sheila Hamp did the infamous hands over the face, we sat and we was like, this is the end for Matt Patricia. We were 4-7 after that loss. We got blown out by the Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. And we all knew that Sheila Hamp had to do something. And we were expecting it Black Friday to happen. No word that he was going to get fired. And I'll never forget the press conference, because it was still in COVID time. COVID had just come around, and we were doing the press conferences virtually. Matt Patricia comes out after the loss, and the first thing he does is thanks his wife. And I said, I know he's going to be fired. He knows he's going to be fired. Because right before that, for those of you who don't know, I actually met Matt Patricia. This is a story you may or may not know on this channel. I was doing DoorDash at the time, and I delivered to his house by mistake. So he comes out, and I got a thing, because a lot of the Lions, y'all don't know this, you might, but a lot of the Lions players, they live out in Novi. They live out in Novi here in Michigan, gated communities and such. And I delivered, it was the right address, but the wrong house. Don't ask. So I dropped the food off to his house. I go back to the car. The lady who was supposed to get it, she's like, "That's my food. That's the wrong house." So I'm like, "Oh," so I'll go back and get the food and pick it up, deliver it to the right house. And as I'm walking back to my car, Matt Patricia is standing outside the door and he says, "Did you get where you got the food where it needed to be?" I was like, "Yeah." So I'm super excited because I had a feeling I was going to run into a Detroit Lion player out there. He was the first one, and as you guys know, I hit Jamison Williams as well. So I also found out that Bob Quinn also lived in the area, and that I don't know if Dan Campbell lives in that area now, but supposedly Brad Holmes lives in that area. So I say, "Hey man, we need you to win this year." And he told me, he said, "I got my guys." And I was like, this is while Everson Griffin was still a free agent. So it was the summer of 2020. It was, matter of fact, it was the day of the Belle Isle walk that they did here in Michigan. And so he says, "I got my guys." I said, "Hey, I need you to go get Everson Griffin." He said, "I would love to have Everson Griffin." Next thing you know, Everson Griffin signs with the Cowboys. Well, what do you know? At the trade deadline, he brings in Everson Griffin. Everson Griffin was a Hail Mary because he knew that he was going to get fired. If Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn are not fired together, I would have not watched another Lions game until Bob Quinn was fired. Now, I'm over Jim Caldwell. Dan Campbell has done that. He has done that. He has helped me get past Jim Caldwell. Sometimes you don't have to, and I know we have mixed feelings on Jim Caldwell. I know we do. But Dan Campbell has helped me get over Jim Caldwell. But if they don't fire Bob Quinn with Matt Patricia, so if Matt Patricia would have got fired and Bob Quinn stays around, I will not have watched another Lions game. As a matter of fact, Matthew Stafford's last game as Detroit Lions head coach, as Detroit Lions quarterback, I did not watch. I have no idea. I still, to this day, have not watched Matthew Stafford's last game. The last 4 games of the season, once Darrell Bevell took over and he won the Bears game, Darrell Bevell went 1-4 as interim head coach. We ended that season 5-11. Matthew Stafford goes to LA, and here we go. And we're on the path that we're on now, which I think is the right path. I think that Dan Campbell was the coach that we needed. He's younger. He's played in the city. No disrespect to Jim Caldwell, but I think Dan Campbell, I think all of that got us here. But I would not have watched another game. In the 2020 season, the end of it, I have no idea what happened in the last 4 games. I refused to watch this team, right? So Matt Patricia fired 3 years ago today. It really, I don't know. It seems like 3 years. It seems like it was sooner than that, but 3 years, that's crazy. That's crazy. 3 years ago today is when the trajectory of our franchise changed for the good. And that is when the clouds started to move and the sun started to peek through. We have the right people in place. I truly believe that. Are they without criticism? No. And I will continue to do that on this platform. So again, and I'm not trying to be confrontational or anything. I'm going to speak my mind when it comes to this team. I will never, ever tell you what I think you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what I think. That's why you watch. You watch because there are no strings on me. I am not a puppet. I might be unhinged to you at times, and that's okay. I promise you I'm not. I'm not unhinged. This is it. This is my team. I'm from the city of Detroit. I live 10 miles out. And this is no disrespect to people that are not local, okay? But I think being in the city is different. Watching Matthew Stafford win a Super Bowl and watching your fellow Detroiters root for a guy that no longer plays for your team, watching Detroit Rams stuff be sold out was probably one of the most painful things that I've seen outside of Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders retiring. It was a whole different thing in the city. It was, to me, it was disrespectful. It was blasphemy, and it hurt. It hurt because at the end of the day, it came back to my city, my team, what we are incapable of doing. And that if somebody is here, they will never win. And that's why I feel so strongly about Jared Goff. This is not like I just want him to win or I'm slappy or anything like that. I think he has the capabilities to win here in the city of Detroit. I really do. But I really want this guy to win because he, to me, is the embodiment of the city of Detroit. Thrown away, discounted, underappreciated, undervalued. The first time you hear about Detroit, I used to drive a school bus, and we'll wrap the video up. I used to drive a school bus, and I drove out in Troy, and they said, Mr. Fields, where do you live? And I said, I live in Detroit. And the whole bus said, oh my God, are you okay? That's what they said to me. They were concerned about my safety when I mentioned the word Detroit. So Detroit is so much more than that. The people are so much more than that. And that is why I was so hurt when Matthew Stafford, when us Detroiters rooted for a guy. My loyalty cannot leave the city. No matter where I go, I would be a Detroit still. I would be a Detroiter. That's never going to change. So anyway, tell me your story in the comment section, whether it's a brief comment or a novel about where were you when Matt Patricia, where were you in your Lions fandom when Matt Patricia got fired? Were you on the verge of taking a break? Because I was. Let me know in the comments below. Like I said, man, I'm here to get you your news, your rumors, your updates and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, this is a fan channel, and I will always be fan first. And sometimes we have to just have conversation. So you guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. To all the subscribers, the new subscribers I have, I appreciate you. And I'll just say this. I appreciate every single one of my subscribers. Whether you announce your departure or not, I realize that as a subscriber, the only superpower you have is your subscription. So you value it. You value it. You can only push that button one time. And once you give me that subscription, you can't give me anything else. So I understand why that is such a big deal to announce your departure. I care, but then I can't really care. I have to keep this train moving. And if I get caught up in who's not here anymore or you departing and not watching the channel, then I'll get wrapped up in that. And I have to keep things moving. So I appreciate whether you are a new subscriber, a viewer that has not subscribed yet, or a person that unsubscribed and still watch. I do appreciate you. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions.